To me, every block you make in football, there's three phases to the block. There's an approach, there's a contact, and there's a follow-through. So when we're teaching the block, we teach it in those phases. When we evaluate the block, we evaluate it in those phases.
Welcome to another episode of the Mushroom Society on the Coach and Coordinator Network. Today's episode features Texas offensive coordinator and offensive line coach Kyle Flood from the 2026 Cool Clinic. Coach Flood takes us inside the teaching progression behind one of the game's most effective run concepts, the outside zone. Before he gets into the X's and O's, he shares a framework that can help coaches teach and evaluate every block they coach regardless of scheme. From running back aiming points and offensive line targets to defining cuts and creating movement at the line of scrimmage, this quick segment from his 2026 presentation is packed with practical coaching points you can take straight to the meeting room and the practice field. Let's get to it. Here's Coach Kyle Flood.
I got quite a bit of film, so I do want to get to that, but I do want to tell Coach Wiley and everybody at the Cool Clinic that I appreciate you guys having me back. For the younger coaches that might be watching, without this clinic, I started going to this clinic in the late 90s as a really young coach, and it was guys like Coach Wiley, Coach McNally, Coach Scarnecchia, Coach Paul Alexander, Bill Callahan. I got a chance to watch these guys before I even knew them and learn from them, and it was super, super valuable to me in my career, and I don't know that I could have progressed the way I did without this clinic, because every year it was on the calendar and we'd go out to Cincinnati and we'd do it, and hopefully someday, Coach Wiley, maybe every 5 years or so we could do it in person again. That'd be a lot of fun to do that. One more trip to the old Montgomery Inn, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
That would be good for sure, but I can't tell you how much I've learned from this over the years, and hopefully I can give some of that back today. And do that. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, coaching the offensive line, especially in college with the numbers we have right now, is never just about one person. And I've got a team of guys that work with me, Darren Gatewood, Mitch Zalotti, Jason McIndoe, and Danny Rangel, that all work with me around the clock and throughout the course of the year, to get these guys to do what you're going to see them do on film today. So with all that being said, like I said, I got a lot of film, so I want to get to it. And I want to take you through what we have with our outside zone play. So I start every clinic with this, and I think this slide is really important to me. And a guy by the name of Andy Kwan made this slide for me back when I was in Alabama a few years ago and put it on paper. But this is really how I've always tried to approach coaching the offensive line. And this doesn't matter if this is outside zone or inside zone or gap schemes or pin pull plays, whatever, or pass protection. Really, we try to break it down like this. And to me, every block you make in football, there's three phases to the block. There's an approach, there's a contact, and there's a follow-through. So when we're teaching the block, we teach it in those phases. When we evaluate the block, we evaluate it in those phases. And so your approach is your target. Your targets determine footwork. And then ultimately your pad level, because certain blocks you make, you might be running on a screen. Your pad level might be high, but how do you get your feet and your pad level in phase right before the contact happens? And then you get to the contact phase of the block. And then, what is the contact surface? Is it one hand? Is it two hands? Is it a shoulder? Is it a shoulder and a hand? So there's a lot of different contact surfaces that happen in blocking in general. And then ultimately the follow-through. What do I want the follow-through to look like? What do I want your lower body to look like? What do I want your upper body to look like? So we're going to coach kind of in these phases as we go through the clinic. But I do think if you're a young coach on the stream right now, or you're watching this at a later date, I think as you evaluate your stuff, this is a really good systematic way of doing it to make sure you're not just saying, hey, that was a good block, that was a bad block, that was a good block, that was a bad block. Well, some blocks are effective, but they're not necessarily all good. And I think this hopefully will help you guys out. It certainly has helped me as I've gone coaching through the years at a lot of different levels, whether it was high school, Division II, 1AA, FCS, to Division I, to the NFL, and to a place like the University of Texas where I'm at today.
We'll get back to Coach Flood in just a moment. If you're enjoying this episode, make sure you're part of the Mushroom Society. The Mushroom Society is a year-round community built specifically for offensive line coaches. Members get access to exclusive clinics, OL Coach U, monthly learning drops, film studies, and conversations with some of the best offensive line coaches in the game. You'll also find a growing collection of resources inside the Cool Clinic store, including clinic presentations, coaching materials, and replay packages designed to help you sharpen your teaching and build a better room. To learn more, visit mushroom-society.com or click the link in the show notes. Now back to Coach Flood.
So let's talk about outside zone. Okay, so I start with this premise. All runs that work separate the defense. I didn't make that up. I learned it at the Cool Clinic. But it's always stuck with me because it makes a lot of sense. What are we trying to do with this run scheme to ultimately create a seam and define a cut for the running back? Well, today we're talking about outside zone. So what does that mean? So the play itself. We want to stretch the front side horizontally and win the line of scrimmage. Okay, so I want to be very specific when I say this, because I think sometimes people can misunderstand outside zone as not it being a physical play. And if you are running it correctly, it should be a very physical play. So we want to stretch the front side horizontally, and we want to win the line of scrimmage. I want to see feet gaining ground on the front side of this play. And then on the back side, we got to cut somebody off. I'd love to cut them all off, but we got to cut at least one guy off to create the seam that we're looking for. The beauty of this play is you can run it strong, you can run it weak, you can run it all personnel groups, and we do a pretty good job of doing all those things, whether it's 12, 21, 20 personnel, 11 personnel, 10 personnel. You can do it in all those personnel groups. And the other part of it, to me, I think that's really valuable, whether it's college or high school, is you can incorporate the read game, meaning are you going to read somebody and maybe throw an RPO or an advantage throw? Or are you going to read somebody and maybe the quarterback keeps it? You can do all those things. And you certainly can do them in the NFL as well. I know they're a little bit more restrictive in terms of how they can use their RPOs, but there are ways to do it. And outside zone lends itself to that. All right, from the running back standpoint, now we'll coach. I think this stuff probably better coached on the film, but I will go over it right now. What is our aiming point? Because the term outside zone, wide zone can be construed a lot of different ways. And for us, it's very simple. If we're running outside zone strong to the tight end, it's the outside leg of the tight end. If we are running outside zone weak, it is the outside leg of the tackle. Okay, so those are our aiming points and those are what we call man marks. They're not landmarks, they're man marks, meaning they move. We want to chase those targets with the running back as we start the play. He should have a stretch and puncture mentality. We are trying to get the defense to run laterally. And then he should, at some point, when we define the cut for him and he sees it, he should stick his foot in the ground and burst vertical. And the next expression is probably the best expression we've had for that. Controlled speed to burst. Controlled speed to burst. You don't want to come off the ball slow, but you shouldn't come off the ball 100 miles an hour either. You want to get yourself to a good point of speed, controlled speed, so that when you see the cut and you are ready to make the cut as a running back, I should see a definitive change of speed as you go through the line of scrimmage. That tells me that your eyes are seeing what I want them to see. And for me, as the offensive coordinator, as an offensive line coach, somebody who is in charge of the run game, it's really important for me to get the first cut by the running back the way I want it to be. And then after that, I want to see his God-given ability take over. But I want that first cut to be the one that I'm looking for. And then, what is he reading? What is he looking at? So he's reading the first down lineman outside in. Okay, that's not new to anybody who's studied outside zone before. But I think the next part is really important. He needs to know the offensive line targets. He needs to know, if we're running outside zone strong, are we in a combination block on let's say a 6 technique defensive end that's going into the box, or is it going outside the box? Because that's going to change how that combination is going to develop. So it's really important that the running back knows what our targets are as offensive linemen. And I'll point that out as we go to the film. And then finally for the offensive line, just a couple things, and we're going to go through all this on film. 2-foot splits. We play the game with 2-foot splits. We don't adjust our splits. We don't change our splits. That's how we play the game because plays change. Defenses change. So if you were playing against a team that it was just going to line up in one front the whole time, there might be some advantage to moving your splits, in and out. But for us, defense lines up in one front. By the time we're getting ready to snap the ball, they could be in a different front. And all of a sudden now your splits are all jammed up. So we're going to play the game in 2-foot splits. Outside zone or zone plays in general, everybody's got a play side gap responsibility, but that's only a starting point. It could be a people play, meaning I can tell the offensive line, hey, we're in 12 personnel, we're blocking the front 7. We're in 11 personnel, we're blocking the front 6. It could be a people play. It could be a spotted play, meaning I don't care who the people are. I don't care if they're DBs, linebackers, we're blocking spots. Or it could be a box play, hey, we're only blocking whatever's in the box. It could be any of those things. And that's a little bit more specific to whatever system that you're in. But it's adjustable to all those things. Targets determine footwork. We already talked about that. Your backside hand is really important. That's going to come up on film. I'm not going to go into it now, but you're going to see how critical that backside hand is. Your catch hand is super, super important. We want to define the cut for the runner. We want to define the cut for the runner. I want to tell the running back, if I'm on the front side of this play, I'm going to try to tell the running back where to go. And then on the backside, we talked about cutting somebody off. And in my opinion, man blocking is the best way to cut off the backside. So when possible, we try to get ourselves into man blocking situations. But all that's going to come up on film. There's your target, strong and weak. You guys can look at that. Nothing really to see there. But now what I would like to do is I'm going to take you through our progression as we teach this play.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Mushroom Society on the Coach and Coordinator Network. If you enjoyed today's presentation from Kyle Flood, you'll find hundreds of hours of offensive line education inside the Mushroom Society, including presentations from college and NFL coaches covering everything from fundamentals and technique to scheme, practice organization, and player development. You can also explore the Cool Clinic store for clinic replays, coaching resources, and additional learning opportunities. Visit mushroom-society.com or thecoolclinic.com to learn more. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and keep developing the guys in your room.